So the format, I'm going to start off having a conversation with Julene about the Winter Gathering, about the Trailblazing Systemic Change weekend that we're doing January the 13th to the 15th, which will be online and in person, face-to-face. And then we'll open it up for your questions, your feedback, your comments. So we've got an hour and a half. We'll see how it goes in terms of how much time is needed. But welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce Julene, who I've known for probably a good 10 years or so now, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we met pre-Campfire when I had high in the sky ideas for another social network called Picnic Village, which luckily with a name like that never actually came to pass. But you were based up in Leamington. We have a lot of connections from Leamington Spa, which is my hometown. So fair to say, I think you've been a fairly active member of the Campfire community since we started, really. And you pioneered our first Lighthouse for Learning session, which was Women's Initiation Journey, which you might want to say a little bit about. And then you spoke at Camp Out this year. I must say it was great to be back in person and doing face-to-face events after 3 years of not being able to. We'd done another Camp Out in Frome in 2008. Which was fantastic, and great to be back in intimate spaces for a couple of hundred people, having done festivals for up to 40,000, I think, in a past life with the Big Chill. It was great to be back in that sort of intimate space. And you gave a talk there on systemic change, which I must say, out of all the talks, you finished it, I think it was about 45 minutes you spoke for, but then you said, if anyone wants to carry on the conversation, I'll be outside.
You went for 4 hours afterwards.
We had 4 hours around 2 tables with about a dozen people hanging on to your every word and feeding back to you. And I don't know what was said because I wasn't there, but it looked like they were very engaged. So I think systemic change feels like a very hot potato at the moment, and we don't want to drop it, really. So welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm I'm very excited about this. I've been on a couple of conversations with, with different people around the globe that, some of which are flying in for the event, and it's quite a significant coming together. So, thank you for hosting it. I think it's going to be very important.
I think it will be, and to do a whole weekend, I think is good. So if you want to outline the weekend, we'll be arriving on Friday, 4 o'clock. It's at Paddington Farm, which is in Glastonbury, just outside the centre of Glastonbury. And it's actually about just a few minutes walk from the tour. So it's nicely located. You went down there and saw the venue, Julene.
Yeah.
And it's, it's not luxury accommodation. There are options in the town if people aren't into shared spaces, which is more sort of bunkhouse, I guess. Is that the way you describe it? Sort of walkers?
Yeah, I mean, it varies because this that particular venue, it was originally for kids taking some time away from the city and doing some more sort of nurturing developmental activities. But it's what I liked about it is that it's very communal in the sense that there's a lot of big round tables. There's a lot of communal space and breakout space. Some of the rooms have 2 single beds, 3 single beds. Some of them have more. So it is that kind of school style setting. But like we said, if that's not your thing, then there are some Airbnbs and some hotels that we'll be recommending nearby in Glastonbury. It's only a short walk from Glastonbury High Street. So, but the nature of the venue was chosen for a couple of reasons. One, I think the maximum physical attendance we can have is 40 people. And that was intentional because we could choose someone with a lot, but for people who are physically there, I don't want to say we don't want you there, but if you are not really serious about systemic change, then you shouldn't be there, because this is really about people who are very committed to systemic level change coming together. And it's not just, we're going to, have a smoke and a drink and this and that. It's we're really going to build the foundations of a very serious movement. And I have people flying in from Los Angeles and Mexico. We've got people from the Philippines and Burma, Nigeria. I mean, it's quite phenomenal. Like the response that yeah, we've gotten from it. So the venue was chosen intentionally to not house that many people. And it was also chosen for those people, for us to spend time together, you know, out in the fields, hanging around on the tables. So we get to know each other personally. But we also have a lot of virtual, an engaged virtual ticket where you will be part of all the workshops. We will have virtual sessions after the event to follow up, so you can be part of the whole content process. And then we have a passive, you know, virtual member, basically for recorded talks and people who want to learn about what systemic change is. If they don't want to jump in, they just want to learn about it. But the engaged virtual membership is also very, very good. And there's some people who, yeah, you know, from around the globe that are joining that, and that will be like joining us on the co-creation of the content. So it's not a passive sit back and be lectured. You know, it's a very much a circle sharing, an appreciative inquiry, a creative process, as well as like a lot of strategic planning. Because to get the best out of our collective contributions, we keep that creative process going all the way through the event. But also to have some really concrete strategizing as part of it. So it's a particular thing. It's not, you know, I've been to a couple of different philosophy festivals and music festivals, but I think this event is with a particular purpose that has been growing over a number of years. I'll just say a little bit about the backdrop, in the sense that so I did medical anthropology and anthropology of development. Medical anthropology, I looked at global health before the times of COVID. Before the times of COVID, global health was talking about power dynamics in medicine, which are not good, structural violence, which is basically how structures in society create the conditions for illness, amongst other things, and on the ground field studies of aid and development. We're talking about how development is designed to benefit is not designed to benefit the people who would espouse it wants to benefit. It in fact just is kind of increases imperialism and various other things. So all these critiques were going on years and years ago. And I've sort of been in touch. I've been a musical activist as well as a music therapist and artist. And I've been in touch with all these people over the years. And there has been something that happened during COVID that hit a different threshold. Because people had to operate in different ways, people were restricted in different ways, and it's like, hello, here's what we were talking about with power dynamics in medicine and why it's not healthy. Here's what we were talking about with, you know, structural violence. It's embedded in society. Like, health is a social thing, you know, just as much as it is an individual thing. And just with activists realizing we have to co-strategize. And besides the realization of co-strategizing, you know, COVID highlighted a lot of existing system failures. But I think the other thing that happened in the process of that creativity was there was a lot of commonality, shifts in thinking and shifts in practice that led to commonalities that and motivations for collaboration that weren't previously there. And with that, like, essentially systemic change is hitting so many different things. You know, it's the political system, it's the education system, it's how our healthcare system works, and everything's interrelated and everything's interconnected. All of our problems are completely interconnected. All of our problems are global in reach. So there is no individual campaigning anymore. There is no operating in the current political system anymore. I mean, it's not that you can't get anywhere, but we're not going to get to a significant level of change that's going to address root causes. So all of these things came together, and people said, okay, now we need to just level up our strategies in a serious way, and level up how we, co-create change and set the foundations for a different type of movement, like a different political structure, a different type of movement. It's not about individual campaigns anymore. It's not even really about protesting in the street anymore, although that does have a role. But I think we realize how deeply embedded these issues are in our institutions and our society, which is why I'm honored that, with this small venue in Glastonbury, that I think in the actual venue, it's 28 people. We have people flying in from all over the globe. I'm like, we're not even covering their flights. They're like, I will find a way. So it's kind of been, I think it's been a long time coming. I don't think we're dealing with anything new. I mean, these are the same activist questions, but I think there's just a lot of different things that have clicked into place, and a lot of key people that have come together. And I think, I don't even want to talk about Liz Truss and all this nonsense that's going on, but it's never been more ridiculous, like at a level of ridiculousness. I mean, with Trump and all this stuff, it's just like, it's our, there's no political leadership, but you see even, the political system itself is so debilitating to anyone who actually wants to do something. Even people I know in the, economic world and development world, those systems are so constraining to a person who wants to make meaningful change.
There's a brilliant podcast today, which AB flagged on the Campfire site by James Dellingpole, interviewing Simon Elmer, who's just written a book, The Road to Fascism. And he was saying the same thing. It's probably the most inspiring interview I've seen all year, so I'd urge everyone to check it out. It's an hour and a half, but if I can quote him in there, he's echoing exactly what you're saying, Julene. Through my work in social housing, I met quite a few politicians, both at council level and MPs. They seem to be people who don't have any principles at all. They seem only to be interested in getting into power. When they get into power, they realize they're not in power. The people in control are controlling them. Yeah. There are very few leaders in the West at the moment who've not signed up to Agenda 2030, who are following not merely principles of neoliberalism, but the World Economic Forum and its stakeholder capitalism. Our politics is so compromised now, nobody believes in it as a forum or a medium for change. Our resistance to digital ID and everything that's going to come from that comes from a different sort of resistance. If we can resist in that dimension, that is our greatest chance for change. Parliamentary politics has been too compromised. We need a complete change. We can still fight on this level for culture, education, propaganda, ideology of ideas. That's just one of many quotable parts of a brilliant talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's definitely it. It's just systemic level change is just, we're not going to do it in the current structures. That doesn't mean you can't, in some ways, strategize with them and deal with them. But the crux of the work is going to happen outside of that. And we have to build different structures with a different foundation. And one of the main, and a big part of that is twofold. One of that is our individual praxis. Because I'm just talking from my personal experience. I have detoxed some of social narratives from my body. One of the reasons why I did the women's initiation course is that there were things that I believed about being a woman and different things that I literally had to detox from my body in order to physically heal. Trauma is detoxed from the body, right? So all of us need to have a personal praxis. So all of us need to be doing some type of personal development, spiritual development, personal praxis growth thing. Second thing is very key processes of social learning and collective learning. This is something we're going to be doing at the event physically, but we also have some really awesome ways to engage the virtual participation. Because it's about a couple of things. Desocializing and re-socializing, rehearsing a different set of relationships, because you wouldn't believe how you're used to a certain way of engaging. And we have to actually change how we engage, how we relate. So that's where all the sort of creative arts and praxis and different things are going to come into it. And it's going to be very much based around circle sharing and appreciative inquiry, as well as arts, which sounds like very simple, but it's quite powerful stuff. So those two things have to be happening simultaneously. And the third thing is literally strategizing for a different type of structure. And there's some people who have made some amazing, new models, different ways of working, different ways where we can act on systemic leverage points that'll give us the strongest possibility to change that system. Basically, breaking down the old and building the new, right? So it's going to be a lot of building the new in terms of like looking at different models, but also building the new is also our individual and collective learning. Yeah, I kind of have a tendency to trail off. So Pete, do feel free to like jump in at any time.
I've got a few things to prompt you with. So people may be wondering about the rhythm of each day. We've got Yael, who was at the camp out, who'll be doing some breathwork sessions to get things moving as only she can. And those who were at camp out realize how powerful those sessions were in terms of detoxing the body, really, and coming into your heart and coming into your body. There was one woman I witnessed who was in floods of tears for 15 minutes. There was so much coming out. It was an incredible catharsis for people to be there and do the breath work to start the day. So I think that will be a very powerful start. But if you'd like to say a bit more about the rhythm of the day and how workshops will be organized.
Sure. So Friday, I think things start at about 4:30. And because a lot of people are going to be, settling in and things like that, on Friday, we're basically just we're going to do some breath work, group singing and drumming, but just like getting to know each other, right? Because it's very important that like outside of these big projects that we're putting together, that we can really sit down as human beings and understand what everyone's about. What are your intentions for this and your hesitations, and just really get to know each other. So I think on the Friday, that's just going to be more of a relaxed, creative thing. Okay, so Saturday, the first thing that we're going to start, breakfast, we'll start with some breath work and things in the morning. And then the first thing is the vision boarding. So creating the vision of where we want to go. What is that ideal world where everyone's thriving and everything's awesome? And then the transition map of what we think needs to happen in order to get there. And these are going to remain in that room because we're going to be constantly going back to them. So every time we have a workshop or a talk, we'll be like, okay, hang on, what was that key thing we discovered? Put that on the transition map. Or what is that major system leverage point? Like that, we're going to be, this thing is going to be very, very creative. We're going to be fleshing it out as we go. Okay, and then we're going to start with some Home for Humanity is a group that have members all across the globe. They're going to start with a transformance, right? So that is basically a participatory arts process, right? So we're going to do this whole co-creative thing around what an inclusive, just, regenerative Earth civilization looks like, feels like, and involve a lot of the virtual participation. to hear from people, activists, and artists. So the whole morning is going to be sort of more creative, personal praxis, getting to know each other, visioning. And then after lunch, we're going to have talks, right, on elements of systemic change and what is systemic change. Be doing every talk is going to be with a workshop. It's not just going to be talking at you. And then the evening is the harvest stress session. So after we've done all that, then we put together like the strategies, strategic action, how do we collaborate, like what we've learned from today. So that, and it's a similar rhythm on the second day, in the sense that we'll start with what we all learned from the first day and some personal praxis. We also have a very cool critical somatics workshop. So that kind of brings together the working on yourself, working on your body, and figuring out new ways of relating and collective learning, collective intelligence. Then we'll go through some more talks and harvest sessions once again in the evening. So it'll always kind of have that rhythm of like the personal praxis, the creative activities, the circle sharing, and like then getting into really concrete, collaboration, strategic, kind of maybe more organizational stuff, boring, but very, very important, because we do want to have, real outcomes by the end of this. Obviously at the beginning of the first couple of days, we're going to talk about what outcomes we want. Even before you come, if you're an engaged virtual member, you'll be sent a survey, right? That's saying like, what do you need personally? What are you willing to contribute? What are you not willing to do? How, what are your strengths? So we're gonna have all that, even, what are your goals for what you would like to see to happen? We're gonna have all that even before this, this weekend begins. So it's structured to really create that systemic process, and also have strategic outcomes, as well as get the best out of our collective learning around all these areas, politics, economics, health, education. And I've just found the best way to do that is in this constant creative mapping and remapping, and then taking the best of that into action, and into strategic action. So it's very participatory. It's very engaged. I think part of the reason also I'm doing it that way is global South participation, and just people from different countries respond a lot more when something is, creative, artistic, participatory, engaging, and we really want to get the most out of everybody, because these are people who have been living the very vivid reality of structural violence. Like, how many Nigerians benefit from all the, resources from Nigeria? They don't benefit from that. Corporations benefit from that. And this is really important, because people who are presenting on changing the economic system here and making innovations here in the UK, those guys are going to back them up. Do you see this like big systemic thing that it's so hard to talk? It's harder to talk about, and it's really set up to be that creative, participatory process with, I call them harvest sessions, strategic action and collaboration, partnership, associate strategies for how we work together in our organizations, but in your everyday life. So it's hard for me to summarize the content, but what you will get out of it is something that you can do, things that you can do every single day as on an individual level, things that you could do with an organization if you're part of an organization whose work is relevant, and you'll understand what kind of collective practice we can do literally globally that can constantly integrate our efforts, combine our efforts, enhance our efforts. Paulo Freire said, true empowerment is always collective. I don't want to put like a big capital T on that, but what I will say is that it is a very, very powerful thing when you have collective realizations. Yeah, so that's, yeah, it's a very, very powerful thing to be, for your individual hardships to be backed up by people and compassionately backed up by people for things that you thought were hopeless, to see somebody come forward who's actually really working on that, and to have collective realizations as well as individual realizations. It sounds very simple when you talk about participation and creativity, but it's very, very powerful stuff. So yeah, that's a bit of the rhythm.
I'm back in the room now. I don't know what happened, but I had a complete outage.
Okay.
So I don't know what you've covered in the last 3 or 4 minutes. I've been gone. But
You lost it. I was just saying about the event content and what we're hoping to get out of it.
great. In terms of a movement, I mean, I put a link in the chat to Trailblazers, which is the website we're just setting up, where we're hoping to bring together all the strands and create the movement based around values and based around a plan for action. Do you want to say a bit more about the need for a movement and how the context of that?
So one of the things that we will be doing is an archetype-based, do you know about psychological archetypes, right? An archetypal-based inquiry of what, hang on, can you hear me? Yeah. Of what the key values of the movement are. 3 of these people have written manifestos and constitutions for the founding of a movement. And I see obviously Trailblazers has as well. We're going to be essentially synergizing those. The need for a movement, well, if you work in development or aid or philanthropy, it's not designed for you to be enabled for real systemic change. Doesn't mean you can't do good things in restraints. Good people find ways, but it's not designed for that. Yeah, healthcare system, economic system, you name it. The basis that I'm looking at for the movement, it's kind of very simple, it has 2 things at the center. That is human health and planetary health, because it's about founding a new way of personal and collective learning and new structures and institutions and models that put human health at the center and that put environment at the center. Because what we currently have are social systems that are designed to perpetuate inequality, that are designed to create the conditions for ill health, that are designed to systemically, literally desecrate the earth. That's what we currently have. And so the need for a movement is bringing together, all the key people who want to basically flip the coin on the whole thing. Like, so putting human health and potential, putting planetary life and forest and nature in thriving. That's the new system that we will be co-creating. So the need for a movement is because we're not going to get it in our current social structures and institutions. And we're not going to get it in our current political system. Pete, and I'm sure everyone else has examples of how it's just ridiculous. Amongst other things, which I'm trying to be polite now. Or keeping it brief, not polite, just trying to keep it brief.
I'd like to ask you about Indra Adnan was one of the guests at Camp Out who was invited by Elevate, and she's been involved with Campfire as well for some years now. She was the person actually who urged me to set up the Trailblazers movement as we saw it just before the Jeremy Corbyn era, but it didn't happen for various reasons, mainly because we put our trust in Jeremy Corbyn as a viable alternative. But she was talking at the Camp Out about parallel polis. So I just wanted to talk a bit more about parallel polis, which was a term I think Václav Havel, the former leader of the Czech Republic, termed, about doing the work in parallel to the existing political system. I mean, there's lots of things being done in parallel, lots of different organizations, and what Campfire is trying to do is join some of those dots. So all those organizations are aware of each other, or at least some of them are. But I'm just wondering how effective parallel policy can be if at the end of the day, the existing government can bring in a new law, or they can just change the whole taxation system or anything on a sixpence. You know, have we got any sort of leverage there? And would it not make sense to actually stand some candidates as Trailblazers, or under whatever name we decide, in the general election, which can't be far away?
Okay, so a couple of things there. I think Buckminster Fuller, said a similar thing, right? You don't fight the old system, you create a new system, which by its nature shuts the old system down. So working in parallel, yes, we're going to be building something else whose very nature, the goal is, some of the people that we're bringing in, they're creating like different models that are completely different systems that literally, if you build this, the only thing you'll have to do is just grow it and it will do the job. So parallel working is something that people are doing. Does that mean that we're immune from the effects of, dealing with the realities of our current political structures? No, I don't think we're immune from that. And we're going to have to find the systemic leverage points. So if we engage with, well, there's a couple of things. We will have to support each other. That's the other point of a community, is that sharing resources and finding ways to support each other, so that when we're dealing with, backlash or cost of living or whatever it is from our current political system, that we have a list of places, resources, tools that we can use, and as well as people that we can support each other. But also, if we're going to engage with the current system, we do it on the major leverage points, the biggest leverage points for change, that have the strongest likelihood for change. So I haven't done that analysis on the political system, but we do have people coming who have done that. Because my musical background, I've been putting together different models for music and media, because propaganda, manipulation, mind control, a completely different model for those, so that they can't do that, and that they are hardwired for human development, learning, self-actualization, all these things. But that, anyway, that's a separate thing. The point is that I haven't done a systemic analysis on the political system, but there are people coming who have. And so that's essentially the equation, is building the new. We will have to do that in parallel. We will have to support each other, because we're not going to be immune from any of our social systems that are in fact surrounding us. But also, if we engage with the current system, we definitely should do a good systemic analysis of the major leverage points where you can make effective action. And I have put together an IPA system for analyzing these things and showing like mapping out areas of effective action and things like that. So it'll be a different way of working. But the good news about this way of working is that it's a clear set of values, and it's designed to make us more and more coherent amongst each other, because our current systems, be it political or economic, they're always designed they're polarizing and dualizing, right versus left, rich and poor, and everything is designed to polarize. The system we're creating is designed to synergize. It's designed to make us more and more coherent as we go through it. So I'm hoping that through that collective intelligence and the different people that are coming forward, we can create those answers.
That's great. Some of the things that stood out in the notes, which are in the article, the announcement of the ways you'll be working, some of the words that stood out for me were transformation, seeing power for what it is, and literacies, as well as the systemic leverage points that you've just talked about. Do you want to say a bit more about those other three? And I'm particularly interested in literacies. Presumably you're also talking about new language that we're using to describe new concepts, which is something with Campfire. Again, we've been working quite hard to develop new phrases, new literacies.
Yeah. So literacies is a very interesting one. So one thing that I've been talking about with Phoenix, who is one of the guys flying in from Los Angeles, is that we have to iron out all the key components of the movement and figure out a word that when you say it, it means everything there. And if you don't have something that's in that entire framework, it's not that word, right? So it's like, it's a little bit of a like tight, like branding word job on what we're doing so that we can get it out there, you know, in the most effective way, language wise. But literacies are something that's very important to me because right now we're riding in the dark with blindfolds on with our current political system. It's very scary and it's very dangerous. So literacies, I'll just give you a short background on where it originally came from. Like 12, 15 years ago, there was a lot of violence, crime, in particular, knife violence in South London. And it was a professor friend of mine that was asked to do a study. And he said, social services did a good job, police did a good job, charities did a good job, but their problem is you don't know how to work together. That's the problem. And so he created something called collaboration literacy, because your organization or your website can say we have these partners, but if there's not actually a partnership thing happening, if you are not actually literate in collaboration, no collaboration will actually happen. And a lot of these people don't know how to talk to each other. It's a literacy issue. So that is collaboration literacy, right? The second thing we have is that people are very good in their discipline or very good at their individual campaign, and they can't see the wider systemic issue, how all these forms of oppression are interrelated, how all of our social issues, economic issues, health issues are all intersectional, this, i.e. systemic thinking. So one of the things that is going to be in the course afterwards is structural systemic literacy, okay? If you can't read it, if you don't have words or to identify it, if you don't know what to look for, then you're not going to be able to see it and you're not going to be able to do anything about it, right? So everybody is going to get literacy trainings. So that's really what that's about, because that's part of why conversations are going nowhere and we're getting nowhere, because we're driving in the dark blindfolded. We need to take the blindfold off. We need to turn our front lights on, and we need to realize where the heck we're going. We need to get really, really literate about the situation. So that's literacies. And power is an interesting one. This came from dynamics I experienced in the activist world. And I think there are a lot of people who want to do good things. I think there are a lot of people who are passionate about a lot of different things. But it was very less frequent to find someone who A, knows how to conduct an analysis of power, how to analyze power, how power works, how power is maintained, you know, that whole process of analyzing power, and B, be able to do it in a way that is very constructive, right? That is solution oriented, right? Because a lot of times some of the people, I'm not naming names, but who I met who can analyze power go at it in a very nihilistic way, like really like throw the big punches in. That's okay to throw big punches as long as that's not your only strategy, and as long as you have something very constructive as well. So, but how to analyze power is very important for understanding how to change power. and how to change power structures, which is what we're doing. So it is a political thing in the sense that we're going to be working on changing power structures. Who holds the power, how power works, because this is at the heart of the dynamics that we're dealing with. So yeah, I think, but it's going to be done in a way that's constructive, right? That it's going to be done in a way that addresses our personal healing. It's going to be done in a way that we're going to be working with new models and acting them out and rehearsing social change. And what are those skills we need to deal with that transition of power? So yeah, it's not not for the faint of heart, but it's not for but it is designed for contributions, right? I don't want you to be sort of, people get, hairs go up when you start talking about power, but really it's a conversation to be had, and we got to hold it in a really healthy way. Because here's the thing about any unhealthy relationship, and why we're starting with personal praxis, right? Your personal looking at the micro, that's you. Micro is you in your everyday life, you in your body, you in your family, job, relationships. And then looking at that on the larger collective level, because here's what you're going to see. You're going to see what a healthy relationship looks like, and you're going to see what an unhealthy relationship looks like. And you're going to see what a violent relationship looks like, and what is involved in getting out of that violence. Because we're actually dealing with a violent relationship. Our social systems are violent, and there's a way to get out of that, and there's a way to recover from that, and there's a way to thrive after that. I'm sorry to put it like that, but a social system which perpetuates inequality, which systematically desecrates the earth, is not a healthy relationship. And when you start to make the connection of the different things that are involved on an individual level, if like you're personally in an unhealthy relationship, and what's involved in getting out of an unhealthy relationship, and then creating the ground and space for a healthy relationship. It's very similar dynamics. And I always try to relate things to the everyday and the individual level, because it does, a lot of those qualities and characteristics are mirrored collectively. So I'll try not to give my lecture now. I didn't realize how much I start talking.
Keep some tease value back. But yeah, I did the screen share just to sort of illustrate that the way we've laid it out in the path on the Trailblazers site is personal changes under the I. So there are 4 sections. The first is I. The second is we, what we can change in our immediate community. And this is all open to co-creation. So we're just writing this between us at the moment. So if you have feedback, ideas, further sections which are missing. The third one is region, our country, nation, state, or whatever you want to call it, or our regional reach, where we can influence people around us. And then the fourth one, world, joining the dots globally, which is much more about, I guess, online connections, given that not many of us are jumping on aeroplanes so much, apart from your guests that are coming to the weekend. Julene, which leads us on to the guests. Do you want to say a little bit more about Home for Humanity, Peter Joseph, World Academy, Beautiful Trouble?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the other thing is, guys, these are some of the most amazing people that I've ever met. So like, I don't usually, have bunk beds, but I will do it with these people because they are absolutely amazing. Beautiful Trouble are an amazing group for arts-based activism, and they brought together artists from all over the world. I mean, all over the global South, global North, and they have amazing tools. They have if you look online, Beautiful Trouble, they have toolkits for arts-based activism. So it's everything from strategies, tactics, case studies, and they give you all the sort of tools you need to give your movement, idea, or whatever a creative boost and hence be more effective. But they have some extraordinary people in their network that are going to be joining us virtually, and I think maybe one or two of them will join us, physically. So that's that part.
I've just put the links in the chat, by the way, if people want to copy those.
So Peter Joseph was originally the founder of the Zeitgeist movement and the resource-based economy that happened, some years ago. He's a filmmaker, but what interests me more is how he's evolved the resource-based economy idea into a model for integral economics. He wrote a book on reinventing the economy to end oppression, which is one of the best books I've read on reinventing the economy and how it interfaces with public health. Very, very great. So that's a premiere for him, sort of presenting a new model of economics, and just how much resource-based economy has evolved is quite phenomenal. Home for Humanity. So Rama Mani, she was actually a professor at Oxford as a professor of transformative justice. And Home for Humanity is also another huge hub of activists from all over the world. They believe that the biggest change makers are found in the people that are how can I say this? Dealing most directly with forces of oppression and transforming them most powerfully in the everyday. And they have a amazing network of people, and they've developed the Theater for Transformation process and Earth Agora, which are processes for harnessing our collective intelligence. That's them. Who else is coming? Juan Carlos is coming from Mexico. He he's a systems scientist, so he worked on social systems and re-architecting social systems. And he has a planetary alignment initiative that's going to be part of this. Once again, he has a group of activists from all over the globe. This is essentially like leaders of movements that are coming together to form a mother movement. I think that, and even I see Campfire as one of those. It's a movement that's going to come together to create, we're going to create some kind of mother movement. So I'm just trying to think who else. The World Academy have just, I think, in an academic sense, some of the best thought leaders and, different models that are being brought out as well. So it's a real coming together of key people. And I think what's exciting is that each one of these people that are coming have a network of at least like 1,000 people, some hundreds of thousands, right? So it's quite exciting. Yeah.
It is.
And you feel that empowerment when you're going to realize that each person that's there has hundreds of thousands of people behind them, and we're all going to come together and form a common purpose. So I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you. I think that gives a pretty good introduction without giving the whole course in 1 hour. So I'd like to open it up to the community now. If anyone has got any questions, could you put a digital hand up, which if you look in reactions, which should be along the bottom of your screen if you're on a laptop or desktop, and you can raise a digital hand there if anyone wants to feedback on anything they've heard or ask Julene any more questions. If not, then we'll carry on with the course. Have a few minutes.
Please don't be shy, just anything or anything you're curious about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Claire.
Hi. It sounds amazing. I mean, I'm very excited for this. It just sounds perfect to be starting from the very human aspect of it that we can all share, because we don't want it to become fragmented, and there are certain basic things. And it's interesting because I was working with a cooperative here in Brighton on Saturday, and exactly the same questions were coming up. You know, what are the actual critical things that we need to come together on, that we're not going to disagree on as humans, you know, anywhere on this planet? And I think it's really brilliant that you're coming from that angle. For me, that's perfect. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Claire. Ken, you've got your hand up.
Yes. Well, to those of you who haven't met me before, I am in the United States. I've known Mr. Lawrence for over 30 years from the international music community. This is all pretty mind-blowing. Obviously, I am in Silver Spring, Maryland. I cannot come to this thing in person. I'm glad there will be virtual options. Yeah, it really is. And what I'm hearing from this is that you collectively, you individually, not sure how to put that, are really working to create actual methods, is that the right word?
Yeah.
To produce social, political, and economic change.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit here and complain about society, and I say that the system in the United States is thoroughly corrupted and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you all know we just had a wonderful election over here. It wasn't as bad as I had feared, but it wasn't very good either.
Yeah.
And I feel so helpless and overwhelmed. I turned 71 last month. Am I going to live to see any kind of significant improvements? It's really hard to believe that I will.
But yes, I mean, I think this is what I'm talking about, right? See, you don't realize it when it happens on the collective level, because we respond to our environment and we respond to our social environment. But if you were to put that in a one-to-one relationship, right? Whatever, if it's a friend or a family member or a partner, and if you were to say, you make me feel powerless, is that a healthy relationship? A healthy relationship doesn't make you feel powerless. So I'm going to be constantly bringing in the individual comparison to the collective, because we don't know how to see it in the collective. And this is a big reason why systemic change hasn't happened. And what, you know, Claire was bringing up, what are those key critical points? Yeah, we're really going to hit them. Some of it will be quite intense, but some of it's going to be very enriching and empowering. But yeah. Oh, I think we got another question.
Yeah, Margarita.
Yeah, hi, Julene. You may, I don't know if you can you see me? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm so happy that we have this, you know, this event today. It's really brilliant seeing you again and hearing. You're amazing, and I am really excited. I'm excited about everything. But when you mentioned the mention of Peter Joseph, I actually know him.
Oh, right.
Years ago, I was part of the Zeitgeist. He's incredible. He's amazing. And but I have not followed him, you know, for some time. So I'm really happy to know that he'll be part of it. Obviously, there will be a lot of questions, but what I want to know, how do we actually get to this? Either like you said, there's a limited amount of people who can fit in there, and if we want, is there any criteria how we're gonna get there? And I missed the beginning of it. Like, okay, I don't know what's the cost, but maybe, you know, there's more information, or you could tell now.
Yeah, so we just put together an initial set of tickets. So some are physical tickets, some are virtual tickets. And for the virtual tickets, there's an option for it to be more passive, like you basically, you know, just get recordings of the talks, or you can be an engaged member. So you're really contributing to the content, to the workshops, to, you know, to everything there. So those are two options for virtual membership. We're going to be sort of updating everything. I'm going to be making some promotional videos and just, you know, updating the links. But I think it is, you know, Pete does have the links on Campfire.
I've just put them in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in physical attendance.
Yeah.
You know, if that's possible. And is it on the first come first serve basis, like for
I
those
think
who-
so. I mean, Pete, you just get your ticket. I think, yeah.
when the tickets will be released?
They're released already. Yeah, I sent you the links above.
All right.
On the chat, and also if you go to the main press release article on the Trailblazers website, you will find a page that gives all the links to the tickets.
Oh, brilliant.
You can either book it directly through the Campfire network, or you can go to Book It Be, but Book It Be charge their commission on top. So
okay, brilliant. Wow, we've got really exciting times ahead. A lot to do. And as you probably remember, it's the healthcare. I mean, I totally agree with everything you said, totally. So yeah, it's the health that is very, we have to sort that out.
Yeah.
And the fact that it will be personal also work, that is, that's brilliant.
thanks, Margarita.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Rosalind, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm going to possibly a popular point, but I am an agent provocateur, so I'm happy to take that position. I looked at the
Rosalind, we can't see you. Have you got your camera on?
Oh, she's got it now. Yeah, you just broke up a little, so just repeat. Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that I'm probably going to raise a slightly unpopular observation / question. Having looked at the ticket structure, and given that you're talking about systemic change, I felt that the ticket structure didn't kind of, if you like, with the concept. And what I mean by that is, so for me, as somebody who is stepping back into the world after being in a lot of post-parenting recovery, something I talk about on my website, I'm on a really small income. So I would love to come to this event and I would love to stay. But if it's a race for who gets the tickets first, and there's a system for having a deposit on a place and then, two payments maybe later, then I'm scuppered. And so there's something about that for me that kind of sits uneasily, with the concept of strategic change, when actually that's based on quite a capitalist model and an assumption that we're all coming from a level playing field. And yes, I see that there is the option to join, yes, I could join virtually, but I feel I have a lot to contribute to this, and I would like to be there in person, but I don't have a spare, whatever it is, instantly. So I guess that's my challenge that I'd like to kind of push back, to you and say, how do we create systemic change by actually living it, and offering systems in such a way that mean that we are creating a more level playing field.
Okay. Well, I take your point, and it's definitely a work in progress. It hasn't been easy for us to pull off anyway. In terms of the physical attendance, the virtual one is more affordable. It's because we did want people to invest. We did want people to be invested in the project. There's always ways. I mean, I think the point about, installments, we can find out if installments are possible. Like I said, it's a work in progress.
So I guess that's my question.
And if you have suggestions for how we can do that, then we're more than happy to take suggestions for, how we can improve it.
There are a couple of ticket sellers that do investments. I think Eventbrite do them. Whether we want to use a second ticket seller, I don't know. But that's one possibility that I wouldn't rule out if it would be beneficial for people to pay in installments. And
the other thing I'll say is the reason why it's a little bit more is because we're co-creating content for courses, and during
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with the overall cost. I think it's it's a reasonable cost for what you're offering. My issue is that it's all up front. That's my issue.
We can look at how to resolve that. Yeah, I don't know how to resolve that right now, but we can look at how that can be. Yeah. So thank you for bringing it up.
Okay. Okay, I've got one more practical question as well. What happens on the weekend about, practicalities like eating? Food.
I mean, yeah, you want to answer this, Pete? I think we're having some catering at the venue.
The idea is to do communal cooking in the same way as we did at Campfire at the moment. So we've got a couple of months to organise it.
Mm-hmm. And they have a local veg guy that he's from that farm, that he harvests the local veg. And so, yeah, the idea is communal cooking. And maybe we'll have one of those little trailer buses of food. But yeah, no, there'll be food available, at meal times and, snacks and nibbles.
The communal cooking, is the program structured around communal cooking?
Well, people will be, we haven't gotten that far in the logistics yet, but you won't go hungry. I definitely, in fact, because people are coming from so far away, I'm buying like flowers and candles, and it'll be nice. You will not go hungry, and you will not have to pay for food. That's so, like, don't worry about that.
I don't question. So my question is, if we're talking about systemic change, then the systemic change is also in the process of how we create an event. So I guess that's, for it to be a level playing field, then the program would have to be structured in such a way that houses all to community.
So before the event, if you are involved, if you are an engaged member and physically there's pre-event as well as post-event commitments. And one of the pre-event commitments is that everyone's going to sit down and go through the event design and look at all of these things on how we can design it, most systemically. So the reason why it's not all done and dusted now is that we want those contributions from all the people that are making a commitment to be there.
When we did Camp Out this summer, we had a similar system where the processes and the structures evolved, and rather than us saying this is what's going to happen, we allowed the space for people to step into it, and it worked brilliantly. It was fantastic to see, particularly the team who were in the kitchen. I mean, they got a massive round of applause on the last morning when they served up the final meal, and it was thrilling to see it evolve in that way.
Yeah. So it's not set in stone because we're doing it with everyone's contributions. If you were to come, you'd make a commitment to the pre-event and post-event, materials, right? So part of the pre-event is that we're taking everybody's input on how to design it, which is why it's only just sort of nuts and bolts right now, because it wouldn't be systemic for me to say this is how everything's done and that's it, right? So that's part of it.
No, I hear that. Well, I am completely committed to coming. I could wing over £25 deposit right now, but I would need a staggered way of paying. So that's my invitation to you as organisers.
Thanks, Rosalind. I'll look into staggered options and hopefully hit you with some staggering news.
Thank you.
Margarita.
Yes, so, sorry, just thinking, two things I want to clarify. Just to if I heard it right, did you say, Julene, that the food will be free? We don't need to pay for food? Will it be included?
Well, it's included in the ticket price. Yeah.
Okay. And another, is it easy to get to? Is the location connected? If I'm traveling by public transport, probably by coach or train. So
the easiest way is to get to Bristol, and then from Bristol there are buses to Glastonbury. This particular farm, it's about a 10-15 minute walk from Glastonbury High Street. Okay. So what I will say about Glastonbury is it's not as well connected as somewhere like Bristol or Bath or Wells, so that once you're there, Yeah, once you're there, you kind of stay there. Don't try to leave late in the night, because the buses only run, at a certain time, up till a certain time. So but yeah, mainly just like if you get to Bristol, and then from Bristol you can take a bus to Glastonbury, or like Wells is also nearby. You can get a bus from Wells to Glastonbury.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we arrive Friday and we leave on Monday, right? It's 3 nights. Yeah, I noticed it
Yeah.
says, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We might like do some walks around Chalice Well and the tour, just hang out on the Monday afterwards.
All right.
But yeah.
So if I need to book the ticket back, would be Monday up late afternoon, good, from Bristol? That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you.
That's okay.
Thanks, Marguerite. Is there anyone else who'd like to ask anything or feedback to us on what they've heard so far? I have to say it's been the last couple of weeks on the Campfire Network have been incredibly vibrant. We've had so much input and so many people posting and commenting. It's really moved up a notch. So it's been very exciting to see that happening. And as this course takes shape, obviously that will come online as well. You'll have a whole area you'll be developing in the learning section, Julene.
Yeah, just before we go. So yeah, the point of the event, I spoke about literacies and different things like that. So in the learning section of the Campfire, we put sort of a brief outline of a course, the general sort of nuts and bolts of what it's going to cover. But we're really going to co-create that content, with everyone that's there physically as well as virtually. Because, as much as I can talk about literacies, I need to know, like, what do you need in your life? What are you struggling with? Or what do you, also, what together do we think are the, most important contributions and critical areas? So the content for that course will be fleshed out more so after the event. I do have like a full curriculum, but I don't want to just put my curriculum down people's throats, right? I want that'll be fleshed out with all these thought leaders. Like, for example, Pete asked the question, what about the political system? I haven't done that analysis, but there are people who have, right? So if that's a big point, then there'll probably be a big, section on that in the course. So, and the point is also that you don't just go to the event and then go home and go back to doing whatever it is you were doing, that you have some real tools, that you can, the online, like learning tools for, and practical strategies and personal praxis that you can use in your everyday life, right? So that's one of the outputs, is that everyone should have something to do, and everyone should have some place to take action on, or something important to reflect on. So the course is kind of a continuation of the event. And those with the virtual tickets, there will be another virtual workshop after the physical event. It might be like a week or so after, where we'll sit with you more intensively to go through all the content. So yeah, it's about that. It's about you having the right sort of tools and resources to be able to engage more effectively, and in a more empowered way in your everyday life. So if you're wondering why it's only sort of an overview slide at the moment, it's because we're going to create that content together. So
yeah, and that's, you can find the course in the left-hand menu on Campfire. We've probably got time for a couple more. Ken's got his hand up again.
Yeah,
I know it's what I do.
okay.
Yeah, Pete's used to me. Yeah, Folk Underground's been pretty active lately.
Yeah.
I do need to know about virtually attending, because there's no way I'm going to be there in person. That's,
I know.
And I don't know if there are issues with currency conversion or PayPal, or, and things like Eventbrite also charge extra fees. I don't know how that works over there.
Yeah.
maybe you could try booking through the Campfire site and seeing what comes up, whether there's any sort of currency issue there.
Good luck with the whole thing. I will talk to you guys via the Campfire mechanism. Hopefully I'll get it right. And everybody be well and stay safe.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, we
And
appreciate it.
just to let you know, and everyone else, that we're going to resuscitate the Campfire weekly Zooms on Sunday this week. But it's going to be in the morning. It will go back to the time. So Ken, you might have to set your alarm for about 5 a.m. or something if you want to be.
Boy, you're going to do that? Any particular? Well, I mean, I know you're like 7 hours different from me, but.
Yeah, well, we haven't decided. It'll probably be 10:30 UK time, which was quite popular when we started it originally. So if anyone wants to join us, they're much more open format. And we've had some amazing sessions, which have become quite full of confessionals and catharsism. And is that a word?
And we all need a lot of that right now. I mean, there's no question about that.
And there've been tears, and there've been tears and virtual hugs and some amazing stuff that's come out of those sessions. So I would encourage you to join us this Sunday. The event will appear on the Campfire site as soon as I have time to put it up, certainly in the next 24 hours. And it'll be 10:30 UK time on Sunday morning. So it'd be great to see you then. And I've got to say, I'm really excited about the winter gathering weekend. We're going to trailblaze some systemic change, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real coming together, and it's all based around different types of participation. And I take your point on ticket. I think we only got the tickets up last week, and we're still refining it. And I haven't even created the promotional videos yet. So we're hoping to have all that, the promo stuff sorted out, next week. But we will look into different options. But like I said, this is for people who are, the reason we want a little bit of investment, because it's intentionally, the physical numbers are smaller. But that being said, there is a heck of a lot you can get out of the virtual participation, because even a lot of the people who wanted to participate, all across the global South, and Nigeria and Sierra Leone and Colombia and stuff, they're all coming virtually, and they're no less valued. It's just a logistical thing that there's no way we're gonna at this point bring all these people to the UK. So I would say that there's a heck of a lot that you can get out of that virtual participation as well. And we are having, a significant session after the physical event, just with the virtual attendees, because if you're there as an engaged, there's a difference. There's the observer member and the engaged member. If you are an engaged member, meaning wanting to make a significant contribution, we will make time for you and whatever it is that you want to contribute, because it is very much about your contributions and how we co-create things. So yes, thank you everybody for being the brave souls to come forward for this initiative. So yeah,
thanks everyone for coming, and and staying. It's been good to see nobody leave.